In today's episode of Project B, we are going from this to this in my 1994 Nissan 180SX. So if you've been following the channel for quite some time, you'll know that I picked up this 180SX about a year ago, and over the last year I've been slowly fixing it up, restoring it to its former glory. Now mechanically the car is mint. Apart from a few bushings here and there, the car's solid. So now we're turning our focus onto more of the cosmetics of the car, and we're starting with one of my biggest gripes on pretty much all 90s Nissans, all 90s JDM cars. They have the same problem, and that is that unfortunately their dashes crack. Very common on 180s, Silvias, your Skylines, the dashes like to crack. Unfortunately, I've got a crack in my dash. It's not as bad as I've seen. My original 180 had several. This has only got one going from the front of the dash up through the side of the cluster. There are many ways you can fix this. You can fleck it, you can reskin it, put a kind of like another skin over the top, but it's not to my taste. So what we are doing today is we are going to completely rip the dash out and chuck another dash in that doesn't have a crack, which are getting increasingly harder to find, but I've managed to pick myself up a new dash that doesn't have a crack or a split or anything in it, which is awesome. So that'll be the first piece of the 180, getting it back together, and don't worry, there'll be many more. All right, so it's a quite involved process removing your dash because there's quite a lot of stuff that bolts up to it. So what's our plan of attack today? Well, we'll be taking off our steering shroud, the dash, the cluster, center console, radio, climate control, maybe the glove box, I'm not too sure, but a lot of stuff has to come out. All the trimming at the top of the dash, and most importantly, we're going to try and be quite delicate because these are quite hard to find parts. Stuff like the center air vent, not cracked, quite hard to find. The new dash actually has that included, which is very good. Things like the demister trim at the top, stuff like that. So we've got to be pretty careful, but pretty much everything has to come out. We're probably going to start with the center console, move on to the dash, and then see where we are from there. So as you can see, we have completely taken out the center console here, the shifter, climate control, radio, everything here. Next up, we've got to tackle steering column, dash, this kind of big fascia plate, and yeah, go on from there. All right, so we've taken out the steering column shroud, we've got the fascia out, the cluster out, pretty bare, we're getting there. Next up, we have to attack. Now, luckily, I've got the other dash over there, so I can see kind of where it bolts up. We've got two exposed here, one on the side here. Looking at the other dash, there's another one on that side, as well as three at the top. Annoyingly, off camera, I just tried to see how well these demister vents would move at all, and immediately just shattered into a million pieces. So because this part is constantly in the sun, the plastic is extremely brittle. just like the dash. That's why the cracks are caused, is just unfortunately over time, heat, this just dries out and cracks just like the plastic. Over time, heats up, dries out, and just becomes extremely brittle. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to now source a new, at the moment it's just the right one, but judging by how frail and brittle that was, just no pressure with my fingertips, the fins just cracked. So I'm most likely gonna have to get a left one, depending on if that one stays intact, but I doubt it. So we'll remove those and we'll start removing the screws that look like that actually hold the dash in place. And yeah, we'll go from there. Alright, so the dash is finally out, and it's revealed quite a mess of wires and ducts and aircon units and all sorts of different cool things. It's quite cool to see how everything works, and behind the dash, which is just really to cover up all this mess. Having said that though, I did take my steering wheel off. I didn't want that to get damaged at all. It is quite expensive and I really like it. So I took that off to make sure that didn't get damaged. I also took off the indicator stalks. I didn't take them completely off, just take them off the steering column, because they do stick out quite a bit. So if I'm taking the dash out, there was a very good chance that I was just going to snap these, and that would be another thing that I then have to go try and find and source. So I took those off. That made it a heaps easier. Apart from a couple little ducts and stuff behind the dash, it was very easy to get out. Probably my biggest problem was this shifter. I think before I put the new dash in, I'll just take this off, just so I don't touch it, graze it, do anything to the new dash, because the last thing I want is to go through all this effort and damage the new dash while I'm putting it in. But before I do all of that, I'm going to give the car a good vacuum. This is probably one of the best opportunities I have to vacuum out the inside of my car. All these parts here under the dash, the transmission tunnel, a lot of these probably haven't been touched or seen since the car left the factory, since they were putting everything back together. So it's a very good opportunity to be able to vacuum in all these places, because hopefully and probably I will never be back here, so long as the dash stays good and doesn't crack again. So I'll quickly vacuum this all up and then we'll get back to putting in the new dash. Alright, we have vacuumed out all the carpet here. I've just swapped out the center air vent. The one that came on the dash was a little cracked, so I've got a good one on there. I couldn't actually get this off without going into the actual shifter mechanism, which I don't really want to do. So we're just going to leave it in, be very careful, try not to hit the dash on that, and yeah, hopefully all goes well. 2 people would be very good, but Morgan's been on the beers a bit too much, so he's got a hell of a morning ahead of him. Right, bear with me here. I've just got the camera, I'm just holding the camera by myself, no tripod or gimbal, but the dash, for the most part, is in. It's just sitting here at the moment, but as you can see, if you go in here, holes all, where are we? Focus. Holes all line up. Nice, and down there as well. So that's really good signs. Yeah, we'll just start bolting it all together, getting all these ducts in place, and yeah, go from there. Alright, so the dash is completely in and it is solid. All of the bolts are in that hold it together. It's actually quite surprising. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 bolts that hold in the dash. I'm not gonna lie, I did think it was going to take a lot longer, be a lot more of a fight, but it hasn't. It's gone straight in. Everything's bolted in perfectly as you expect. It is a dash for a 180. So now it's just a matter of time of putting everything back together, all the center console, the climate control, steering wheel, facer, cluster, all that kind of stuff, and yeah, make it look very, very nice. So sit back, relax, as I go and undo, or redo all the work I undid, if that makes sense. We are on the home stretch now. We've got the steering wheel back on, the column surround, the whole fascia, dash, everything. It's looking nice. I pulled apart the cluster and just gave it a really good clean inside and out of the glass. It now is looking factory perfect, looking very nice, very clean. So yeah, all we have to do now is the center console, which is not that hard, and she'll be done. So we'll get onto that and show you the finished result. Okay, bear with me, no gimbal, this is handheld. As you can see, new dash is in and it is looking amazing. Completely has transformed the look of the vehicle. Now looks very much OEM plus. Nice steering wheel, get a look at the cluster, all nice. Yeah, you can see a little bit of discoloration, but for the most part, an absolute amazing job. So the dash is in. It is looking phenomenal. It has completely transformed what it is like to be inside this 180. Before, it was a little bit grotty, a little bit, obviously faded, had the cracks through it. It just kind of brought the level interior down. It just made it feel like this was kind of a runaround car from the 90s, which, nothing against anyone that has one of those, but this car is special to me and I want it to feel special when I get inside it. Now the dash is in and boy has it done it. It looks brand new. Like, no bullshit, it just looks brand new. I've also gone through with some detailer and a cloth and individually, while all the parts are out, cleaned every single part as best as I could. I'm just blown away, like I'm speechless. There's no words I can speak to tell you how happy I am that this has turned out the way it has. It is looking phenomenal. Amazingly, it wasn't that hard of a job. It's just a lot of stuff to take out, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not actually a lot of stuff. So for example, to do the clutch on this took longer than removing the entire dash and replacing it with everything else, which is surprising to me, at least. Going forward though, I am going to have to source some new demist vents. Unfortunately, as soon as I grabbed any part of it, it just obliterated and shattered into a million pieces. But that's what you can expect with a car that's, you know, what's this, 30 years old almost, in the sun, baking. The plastic's brittle, it's just going to break, unfortunately. So that's something I'm going to have to source. I'm also in the market for new door cards. The previous owner, or previous owners, I'm not too sure, rather than mounting the speakers on the inside, decided they'll put some hella early 2000s spec speakers and just drill them straight into the door cards. So that's probably the biggest thing at the moment that's detracting from the interior at the moment. Everything else is pretty decent. Like the shifter, yes, it's aftermarket, but it's classy, it's done well. There's nothing too crazy. The steering wheel as well, it's just a nice black leather steering wheel. It doesn't detract too much. It's very kind of minimalistic, if you will. But yeah, at the moment, the bright blue speakers need to go, the new door cards, because I don't want to have, you know, holes and stuff drilled in them. So that'll be something that I'll be doing in the future. The seats, don't worry. I've already got plans with the seats. I'm not too sure when I will be getting them, but the seats will be replaced into something a bit more JDM, and to kind of give this car the OEM Plus feel that I want it to. But apart from that, I'm just so happy with how this has turned out, and the interior is definitely chugging along. It's not fighting me just like the mechanical side of the 180 is done, and yeah, there is not much left to do, which is good. And yeah, so I'll see you guys in the next episode of Project B. I'm pretty sure we've got some more auction content coming your way, looking for our next flip. Morgan's still trying to sell his MX-5, so fingers crossed he can sell that so we can get back to you guys with who got the most money, who yeah, won all the challenges really. But without any further ado, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, comment below, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. And we'll see you in the next Project B episode.